What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. I am in the Empire State. I am in New York City, but the show rolls on. We're not going to miss a Wednesday here with Mike Ryan. We'll bring in here in a second. Chat's already going crazy. I see it, so appreciate everybody joining us. Real quick, before we get started, shout out to Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Mike, hop in.
Hey, I'm hopping in. How's it going? Thanks for having me. Glad we could do this. It was a little touch and go to see if we can do this week's show, but I'm super pumped about this game. I'm pumped about the discourse. Really excited to be talking about something other than JoJo Trader for once.
Yeah, how did it feel to get hopped in, by the way?
Weird, odd. Pete, hop in. Pete?
Yeah, I don't even know what he's doing. He explained where his absence is. It sounded like an excused absence, but I didn't quite get what's going on. A web of appointments. I took the red eye just so we could do the early show, and they didn't check me in. I was out here walking around Times Square. I tried to give New York a chance. I've been here for like a million times for work, but I'm like, all right, I got some extra time. Let me just soak the city in. I put on some jazz on my headphones. I went to a Korean vegan place. I was trying to keep it extra New York, and yeah, man, can't wait to get back to the Free State. It's cooked. But you're going to Dallas this weekend.
Going to Dallas, another Free State. Yeah, I'm going for the annual Golden Canes trip. I'm excited about this game. This was a game that everybody looked at on our schedule, and at the time when it was released, was most nervous, I think, fair to say, about the trip to SMU. And as the season has evolved, that's changed. I feel like more people are nervous about Pitt. I don't really understand why. SMU is a program that has been in the ACC for 2 years, and apparently they don't count losses in the ACC title game. Not that we know much about that. They're coming off of their first conference loss since joining the conference. It's been a really impressive team, and I think my nerves remain. I do think that as the season's progressed, I think that there are things that Miami does well that will allow them to have success in this game. So I understand why people are less nervous than they were at the start of the season. That being said, I kind of like how Virginia Tech has rallied around their interim. We'll see how they match up against Louisville this weekend. That should be an interesting game. And Pitt looks really good since they made the quarterback change. We only have 4 road tests this year, but they're all unique, and they're all presenting different challenges and different styles, and I know styles make fights, so I'm curious. I do think that Miami's probably going to have, and you'd probably agree with this, D-Money, probably more possessions in this game than any other game this season amongst our FBS competition. So Carson Beck and the offense is going to have an opportunity to show that that little hiccup, that let's call it that 6-quarter hiccup, was exactly that, and not something that might be cause for concern as the season goes on.
Yeah, by the way, where are you with Dallas? Because I remember we first met in Dallas 2019, right? Or 2018? 2018. Rick's last year. We were out there at Katy Trail. I got there a little early. I'd gained some weight, so my Hooters Pembroke Pines shirt fit a little tighter than I would have liked, and I was, drinking a little too early there. So I was kind of a mess, and we got smoked in that game, as you recall. And then we went again, both of us, to that Dallas WrestleMania, which was sick. I don't know if you've been back out there. Where are you at on the city of Dallas?
I love Dallas. I've had a lot of fun out there, even with uneven Miami Hurricanes experiences. Let's just say that. I had a lot of fun after we lost to LSU. They have a cool entertainment district there that they've built out since. So I'm excited to see that whole Jerry World resort now that they've built out there. You got Cowboys Red River if you want some line dancing. You got world-class food, great bars, nice people. So I love Dallas. I think it's a world-class city. And yeah, that is where you and I have had a couple of interactions in Dallas. So a lot of good memories out there in Dallas. Hopeful that we can notch our first victory out there. Us Miami Hurricanes that are traveling out there for the Golden Canes trip. But like I said, it's an interesting game. There's loads of storylines that are obvious and they're so obvious. We've been talking about them for years. It feels like that now we're approaching game day and we're less enthused about all the former Hurricanes. I know they have fewer ones on their roster than they had last year when they made the ACC championship with a lot of cast-offs. Yes, I think it's a fair indictment on Miami's coaching staff that they weren't able to maximize the talents the way that Rhett did, even though he plays a very different style. That being said, a lot of their impact players last year were on the defensive side of the ball. And it was really disappointing that we couldn't unlock them. Rhett Lashley is a talented head coach. I'm curious if this will be Rhett's only opportunity to go up against the Miami Hurricanes over at SMU. I think he's rightfully so garnering interest. I know he's linked to Arkansas. I believe he's a Razorback, right, D?
Yeah, yes.
So I assume he'll at the very least have conversations about that job. But he was a good offensive coordinator down here. No complaints about the Rhett Lashley experience. Wished him well. Happy for his success, even though some of that success can kind of be painted in a negative light when you counter it with Miami's lack of success inside this conference that SMU just strolled into and showed, hey, what's so hard about making it to Charlotte? Really, there's a lot of indictments when you look at SMU's ACC experience and Miami's. So they've just lost their first ACC game. Let's give them a true ACC experience, because your season can go sideways in this conference real quick and you could be undefeated. And then the next thing you know, you're in a tailspin. Ask FSU about that. I think that Miami matches up well. The line is moving in an encouraging direction. This is a team, though, that one thing that should scare Miami fans, D, is their nose for the ball. SMU, even in that Wake Forest game where their luck evened out at the very tail end, I watch a lot of SMU football. I need Pablo to do an episode on their luck, because this is one of the luckiest teams. And I know that takes away a lot of their success. I think I've done a lot of blowing sunshine up their butts here so far. But both things can be true. Rhett Lashley has maximized certain players. They've made the ACC look easy, all that. They've also been unbelievably lucky, like angels in the outfield type of luck. That Duke game last year that effectively kept Miami out of the ACC championship game, that was straight up wizardry. And this team, not only do they get really timely turnovers, it often happens when teams are driving inside the red zone, in goal, in down and distance situations near the goal line. So they've been really, really good at something that is hard to replicate year over year. And that should scare you, given Carson Beck's proclivity to turn the ball over recently.
Yeah, I want to tee you up on this as we're talking about Beck, because if you look at SMU, the stats that jump out, number 8 in yards per rush against, right? So we know those issues that we've been talking about on the show with Miami's run game. Then you look at turnovers, and this is takeaways, right? So this is just plays where they take the ball away. Number 2 to Louisville, who of course had the 4 picks against Miami, really could have been 5. So when you watch SMU, and I've been able to watch a few of their games now at this point, their weakness defensively is really their corners just aren't that talented. So if you can block it up, get the ball downfield, they're not the best. Their ball skills are poor, and they've misjudged some bad ones. That they're not the fastest guys in the world. I mean, you can get them deep in numerous ways. However, we know the conservative game plan that we've seen really sends Beck through those picks, I would say, where you sense, hey, we're trying to get that running game going by any means necessary. We're not only taking what's there, but maybe over-indexing on the conservative side to avoid some of those turnovers. And now you're playing a team that can still turn it over just as well as Louisville, but that is going to be even better taking away that run game and is even weaker on the back end. All that to say, it seems like it's setting up for a do-or-die game for Beck, but a very important game for Beck as a dangerous passer. So where are you on Carson Beck and how we should be using him this week?
I look, there's been a lot of discourse about our offensive coordinator, our game plans, the A gap. I think we have enough experience now to know what the offense kind of looks like when the coaching staff loses, I'm not going to say a lot of confidence, but a little bit of confidence in the quarterback. We remember the Tyler Van Dyke days really well. And let me go on and say this on the front end. Carson Beck is not Tyler Van Dyke. Carson Beck has shown time and time again, not just here, but at a big boy football program over in Georgia, he can shake off interceptions. They're a part of his game. There are quarterbacks like that. Very good quarterbacks that are like that, by the way. My favorite quarterback in the NFL is Baker Mayfield, even though he's turned it around this year from the turnover perspective. I often talk about the notion of a healthy amount of interceptions, especially in a game of real estate acquisition. Oftentimes, Carson Beck turns the ball over on these interceptions that are deep shots that Miami ends up winning in a field position battle. I think that Miami's coaching staff needs to trust the quarterback a little bit more. And that could be something as tangible as allowing the quarterback to check at the line of scrimmage. One thing that I remember from last year a lot was how often Cam Ward would check out of run plays, and the offense was he essentially had the keys to the offense, and the offensive coordinator trusted him implicitly. And we're not seeing Carson Beck make too many adjustments. We know from his time in Georgia, this is something he can do. He can recognize coverages. He can recognize defensive linemen. He can count. And for whatever reason, he wasn't doing that in the first half against Stanford, which was really concerning to me, because that reminded me a little bit of when Tyler Van Dyke had that run where he just couldn't stop turning the ball over. And then Mario Cristobal essentially got involved with the offense and said, hey, we can win these one-score games by having these clean game plans. And I don't think you need to respect Stanford that much. I don't think you need to overreact to the Louisville performance all that much. I think he's a different quarterback. He's an older quarterback. He's mature. Let's give him the opportunity to show off the growth in his game, D-Money. For me, when I talk about the inside runs and the A-gap, I'm only talking about tendency breakers. I understand we're a shotgun team. We're an A-gap team. That's our identity. No one's saying, hey, let's become a speed option team. We're not doing that. Occasional tendency breakers. But really, for me, the main issue was the offense didn't seem to trust its quarterback all that much. And I can't believe we're saying that when just a couple of weeks ago, it was the same thing, D. It was a stacked box. FSU provided the blueprint for all the opponents that followed. They were going to stop the run. And Carson Beck absolutely torched that defense. He's shown you inside of this very month what he is capable of. So trust him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's why you pay him. You look at the stats, you compare it to TVD, right? So TVD, I see the comparison, at least compared to Ward, that his personality maybe, but even then he's really a different personality than TVD. Much better.
They're three very different quarterbacks for loads of reasons, but I hear you.
He's quieter like TVD compared to Ward, but personality, he's much more integrated in the locker room than TVD was. I mean, the locker room likes him by everything I've seen. And then just on the field, I think he's a much smarter player than TVD. Interceptions notwithstanding, I think you look at the record, 30-4 as a starting quarterback, which is basically like a 10.5 win season on average on a 12-game schedule. And that's going to go up if Miami can take care of business here in these games where they're going to be heavily favored. First one being this weekend. So, yeah, I think they're different. One thing that jumps out, I will say this. I said this on the show earlier this week. I could see a world, and you know how it is. These bad experiences kind of traumatize you a little bit, even more than you say. So the TVD experience for Mario, I think, has traumatized him to a certain degree, because that was a 10-win team, really, going into Georgia Tech. That we were, with the way the schedule was set up, we were right on pace to be a 10-win team. The offensive line was excellent, one of the better offensive lines in the country. Running game, even though you didn't have great running backs, was fine. Defense was playing better at that time under Guidry than it was the year that followed. So that should have been a 10-win team, but then the quarterback just collapsed decision-making wise, and of course we know what happened with the kneel down. So that I sense that as being a very traumatic situation for Mario. You see TVD throw 4 interceptions to an ACC opponent, Georgia Tech, at home, and you lose. Carson Beck, 4 interceptions, ACC opponent, at home, you lose. I could see him being concerned that, okay, Beck goes out there against Stanford, even though Stanford, like you said, is not a team that you go out fearing or respecting. You know, first quarter, ball gets tipped and intercepted, the Boo Birds come out. That's not just one interception. The impact of it, given the timing, could be more. So I could see why they were extra protective, knowing like, hey, it's not that they were respecting Stanford too much. It's like, hey, we know Stanford sucks and we're going to beat them pretty bad. We want to avoid losing our quarterback in a stupid game like this. That's what sense I got. This is not information. This is literally just the way.
I know that this is you trying to read the situation, and pardon my French. I hear you. I understand the argument that you're making. If that is indeed the thought process, it's a chicken shit thought process. And this is not the quarterback that you should be doing that with. And I think that there needs to be some internal evaluation. This is a program and a coaching staff, might I add, that needs to prove it can win. We look at the last 3 seasons. You mentioned the Georgia Tech game. Season went sideways after that. We didn't know how to recover from that. Nope. Yeah, we got a couple of wins. We had a couple of nice performances, but the book was out on us. Last year, Virginia Tech. We were hoping Virginia Tech caught us flat. It was an outlier. And from that moment on, outside of maybe the Wake game in the second half against Duke, we were riding a roller coaster because we got found out. And the team and the coaching staff, despite not maybe necessarily carrying themselves like it felt like tight vibes. And I'm hopeful that the end result of Stanford with Miami covering a massive spread would indicate hey, we're going to be just fine. But that was a very concerning first half. I was more upset after that first half than I was after losing to Louisville, because that's not how you rebound from that. I get it. I get being scarred by your trauma. Every team is new. Every quarterback has been vastly different for Mario Cristobal during his time here. I think he needs to trust that he built out a really good roster. I think he needs to trust that he signed a really good quarterback, a guy that 2 weeks ago was the Heisman favorite, the betting favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. And I think that the offensive coordinator needs to call some plays that keep some defenses on their heels and empower the quarterback, not necessarily to the level of Cam Ward, but empower the quarterback more than he appeared to be empowered the first half against Stanford. Again, that's just me reading the situation. This isn't inside information. I'm watching the games just like you, but I think everybody collectively needs to take a deep breath and trust what they've built over here, individually and collectively. The arrow has been pointing up year over year. The time to cash in the chips is now. We know what Miami's high-end ceiling is. They are as good as any team in the country, and they are nearly impossible to blow out. But I think you saw a blueprint in the response to Stanford that shows stubbornness, pre-snap discipline. These are things that are going to be Miami's weakness, and they're going to need to overcome that if they're going to win number 6.
Yeah, and I think every team's going to play Miami the exact same way. I don't think there's any secret to what you want to do to Miami. You want to force back into mistakes. At the same time, you don't fear the explosiveness of Miami's passing game right now, other than Malachi Toney. So it seems like, and you want to take away the run, which to me, with the running game, I understand all the criticisms, but teams still try to take it away first. And they put a lot of emphasis to that. And I think there's a reason why. What really concerns me is the fact that I don't think teams respect our passing games as much as I would have hoped they would have respected the passing game this deep into the season, given how healthy we are at receiver, offensive line, quarterback. What I'll say with Beck, and I agree with you. Look, Stanford, that's done. I don't think it's going to be the same way this week. I definitely don't think it should be the same way this week. You're going on the road. You got to win the game, and you got to trust your quarterback. You don't need to protect your quarterback in this environment. This is like not even in the top 40 environments that he's played in. Right? Or
it's like, what is it? 32,000 capacity at this stadium. This is nothing.
11 a.m.
Yeah. Shout out to Carlos Enriquez in the comments. That's what I'm saying.
Big C, what's he saying?
Big C is saying you never win or reach your objectives playing scared. Miami has a lot of things going up against them, namely the defenses that know Miami's tendencies, just like we do in the stands. So Miami's pretty easy to read in that regard. I would hate for Miami to go down and be eliminated from CFP contention or in the CFP because they were undisciplined or they didn't trust themselves to reach their ceilings. And I got really scared because I saw both of those things unfold in that first half against Stanford. I don't know about you, and I know we're trying to turn the page and be 1-0 against SMU, but I left that game more upset. Despite winning by 30+. Because not again. We're not going out like this. We're not going to I don't want to have bullets left in my chamber. I think that if this team meets its full potential, truthfully, they can beat Ohio State. They can beat whoever. They can beat whoever in the nation if they play clean football and if they trust themselves to make the plays. This roster that Mario Cristobal and his staff have built is that damn good. That quarterback can win you a national title. Will Howard won a national title last year. All right? We're there. We're right there. Don't be one of the things holding your program back. That is my plea. Trust your players. Trust your players until they give you every reason not to. But I don't think we're there with Carson Beck. All right? We're trusting you. Shannon Dawson came out firing in that press conference. You won't hear another conversation. You heard us. All right? You heard us on the A-gap. We heard you. We are crystal clear. This is my angle on it. Trust your quarterback a little bit more. That cocky Shannon Dawson that was talking about the FSU game, about the corners that couldn't cover, and because he knew Carson Beck, he devised a game plan because he knew Carson Beck would torch them. That's the same guy. That Louisville performance doesn't change things. Just tell your quarterback Louisville made unbelievable plays. They made catches of the year on like damn near every single one of their interceptions. Shake it off the way that you've proven that you can. Let's go out there and let's torch this secondary because that's a joke of a stadium compared to where you've done it in the SEC, where you've done it this year at Doak. Come on.
Yes, 6 top 10 wins for Carson Beck. I mean, you mentioned the example of Howard. If you win 6 top 10 games, I mean, you can make a playoff run. I don't think that's going to be – there's no secret team out there hiding behind the door that has Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, and then 10 first rounders on defense. That team, even Ohio State, it's just not out there. So we'll see how it goes. I will say with Beck in particular, you look at the Florida State game and another road game, another game where they stacked the box, and you mentioned it. He tore him up. That was also the game plan, right? I mean, it's not like that happened by accident. That was a measure of trust that was there in Beck. I think, and again, maybe I'm wrong, the Stanford was a very much with Louisville on their mind because it was just like, we cannot let this continue downward because we saw a whole season go away. So I would expect, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not, that the attitude going to this week is more of a clean slate like FSU, which is, hey, if they're going to give this to us, if the personnel dictates that, they're weak here, we are going to attack and we're going to have confidence in our quarterback to make those plays. We're not going to worry about what happened, 2 weeks ago in a home stadium that is very far away. This is let's do what we need to do to beat SMU and not worry about those picks. I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Mike, because when I watch Beck, he is such a quick operator. Everything he does is quick. The release is quick. The hands are quick. He operates quickly compared to Ward, who he could operate quick if he wanted to, but really he didn't want to. He's give me the ball.
He fell in love. He had protection for the first time in his life, and he fell in love with it. I mean, I know from Wazoo that Cam Ward can get the ball out quick out of necessity, but once he got behind our offensive line, boy, did he love playing with those toys.
Loved it, and he would let the guys get downfield. He would squeeze every second out of the play. So just different playing styles. You don't need to have tempo with Ward, although I do believe we played faster last year with Ward than we have done this year, by the way. Maybe it's the nature of the games we've played so far because those were shootouts, too, with Ward. Yeah. So, it's a little different, what was going on the other side.
We also had a very bad defense last year. I think going into this season, we knew that we had a lot of turnover. We liked the coordinator that we hired. We wanted to play more complementary football. I have to check it, but I think it's only gotten stronger. But we were averaging, as of 3 weeks ago, 3 less possessions a game. Now, a lot of that's on the defense, but ideologically, there's been a shift in how Miami approaches the football game. They could be an inside running team and also be in these crazy shootouts because their defense is no good. Ideologically, when they had a defense that was more in line with what Mario Cristobal wanted to have on the field, fewer possessions because it was more clock controlled to have guys like Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor play 70 snaps on the other end.
No doubt. And even beyond just the game management stuff, I just think playing fast is Beck's style. I think if you want the best version of Beck, speed it up because when he's in rhythm, he's seeing it. He's letting it rip. He's spreading the ball. And he's hard to get to because you're not going to get to him anyways from a pass rush perspective. Then he gets rid of it so fast. It's like, I mean, how many completions did he string together against Notre Dame? He can really get hot in that way. And against Syracuse, which is not Notre Dame, or sorry, against Southern Methodist, which is not Notre Dame, or Syracuse in a couple of weeks, against these teams that are on our schedule for the rest of the year, if he's hot like that, those 10, 15-yard completions become 30, 40, 50-yard completions because there's a missed tackle. Malachi Tony does what he did against FSU. I mean, there's a million things that could happen when he's getting the ball out. So I would like to see that a little bit, just a little quicker pace, just a little bit more of, hey, we have not only a quarterback that we can win with, but our quarterback is one of the best players on the field, period. So I think it's very much fair to say. And we'll trust him.
There's a comment here that I'd like to get to. Beck was trying to prove to be Ward against Louisville, trying to prove Mike Ryan right. Let's think about what happened against Louisville. Now, I know that Cam Ward had dug the team out of a big hole.
By the way, you relish the opportunity to pronounce that right.
Louisville.
Every time I see a little smirk as you get ready to drop it.
Always. But you guys remember what happened against Louisville? Right? Went down 14-0. We got the ball back after the very clear fake field goal that we all knew was coming that probably shouldn't have stood because Holder's knee was down. But I digress. We got a procedural penalty on our first drive over there, got in the hole. We were down 14-0 before we realized it, and then Carson Beck was in obvious passing downs. Now, if Carson Beck is in an obvious passing situation and Cam Ward is in an obvious passing situation, I trust Cam Ward more. All right? The Cam Ward is one of the all-time greats to ever play at the University of Miami, and he is better at that, coming back when the defense knows what's coming, than Carson Beck is. The key is making sure we're clean. We don't have these procedural penalties that'll drive everybody out of there. We don't have the same kind of margin for error at quarterback. That's fine. He can still be a national title winning quarterback. I hate talking about this guy like he's bad. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. I just think that we need to stop standing in our own way. That comes down to discipline, and that comes down to trusting the quarterback more. And look, if we're down 14-0 at SMU, can Carson Beck pull us out of that hole? I think he could. I don't want to see it, though. I would know for certain Cam Ward could. Can Carson? Maybe. Probably. Is he going to turn the ball over more in that situation than Cam Ward did? Yeah. So let's not be in a 14-0 hole. Let's go out there, assert our will, play a clean game like we did against Notre Dame. I don't know what USF saw, D-Money, but after that, during that USF game, we got baited into a ton of pre-snap penalties, and then every team just started replicating it. What are you hearing? Are you hearing that teams are simulating snap counts? What's going on? Post-USF, there's a very clear line that we are getting penalized. I got to pull up a stat that Bear shared with us in our group chat that was incredibly telling. And if Miami loses, it's going to be because they're undisciplined. Give me a second to find that snap. But are you hearing anything about teams simulating snap counts? Why is it that after that USF game, everybody started baiting us into false starts?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I've seen the same thing you have on the field, which is, those late shifts are causing tremendous amounts of problems. I think Brockermeyer in general, ever since that, what was the game where he had the snap issues? That was USF. It was
either USF or the
maybe UF.
Yeah, UF was bad.
Yeah, he had the snap issues. I just think Brockermeyer, the first half of the year, and he's not the only culprit on these pre-snap deals, nor is he the only culprit on the run game not being as good as it should. But I feel like he was really playing well earlier in the year. A lot of people inside the building were just really, really effusive about what he was doing. And then you see the last game, 4th and 1 was a tough one. And just in general, I think his level of plays dropped off a bit. I don't know if he's thinking too much or what's going on or if he's being exposed, but I think we can see better from him, and hopefully we will. SMU's not talentless up front. Just watching them, their body types are not as bad as I thought they were going to be.
No, they got a good D-line. I like their D-line. They know how to coach them down there. Here's a stat that I wanted to pull up. This is courtesy of the great Big Noon Saturday research staff, I guess. In our P4 games, we've committed an average of 3.8 more penalties per game than our opponents. That is the biggest difference by any Power 4 team. Yet our yards per penalty is just 7.3, which is 11 lowest. We're just making the dumb, simple ones.
Right.
And for a team that looks to control the game, that goes into downs, managing, all right, we're averaging 4.5 yards per run. Let's get Carson in a good situation. All of a sudden, you get 2nd and 11, 2nd and 13. Our team is not built to dig itself out of that hole. And that's where teams are going to win and punch above their weight class and win inside the margins and make these games a little bit of rock fights that come down to execution. And you don't want to be there. What is hurting Miami more than anything is not the A gap. It's not these big spiritual conversations and ideological conversations we can have about the quarterback and trust and learning how to win. Straight up, it's even more frustrating than that. It's the guys in the sand saying, make your damn free throws. Stop getting dumb procedural penalties. Play clean. We've seen you do it. When you do it, you control the game against Notre Dame, and you're damn near the best team in the nation, if not the best team in the nation. It's that simple. Miami will meet its ceiling, and hopefully that ceiling is number 6, if they play clean football. You're in a blessed situation if you're a Miami Hurricane fan. If you're Alex Mirabal, if you're Mario Cristobal, you are telling your team this. I know for a fact we are championship caliber if we play clean. If we are messy, if we are undisciplined, if we get penalties and we put our quarterback in a bad situation, we can lose to Louisville and we can be tied at halftime against the likes of Stanford. So it's in the team's hands. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that was a great stat about the average yard per penalty. Because, yeah, you think about, like, let's call them controllable penalties, like, false starts, whatever it might be, illegal shift. And then the other guy's better than you and you make a mistake, like a pass interference, right? You got beat. So there's a 15-yard pass interference. You got beat off the snap and there's a 10-yard holding. Those, to me, those are football. But look at a lot of love. Plank Time says, wow, I actually agree with Mike. Appreciate your support. My dad says, you're off the chain today.
Thank you.
I taught him that phrase
See money
10 years ago, and he says it every single day now. They're off the chain. Anyways, so those are controllable, the ones we're having. They're not the ones that are just physical, like, hey, you're holding a lot because your left tackle's getting beat like a drum and he's holding on for dear life. That's not happening, right? Our corner's getting smoked and then having to tackle somebody. That's not really happening either. It's more of these controllable penalties, which is good because you can control them if you're being optimistic. Now, the reason why these are so, like, particularly damaging to us, in my opinion, and this particular team is, like I said, we're 124th in penalties. Like, this total amount of penalties, not the yards. Our offense, if you look at stats that have to do with, like, being on schedule, right, is elite, believe it or not, in that particular area. So, like, success rate, which I'm not an expert in, but basically it's, if you get this amount of the yards needed on this down, it's considered a successful play. I think it's like 6-4, 6 on first down, 4 on second down, and then a conversion on 3rd and 4th. I think that's like the success markers for a 1st and 10. So basically measures your ability to be on schedule. This is like a very popular advanced metric, which I'm not an analytics guy. We'll have Lance Roffers here on Friday. We'll explain it better, but we are 11th in offensive success rate nationally. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Our completion percentage average, or like just our overall team completion percentage, we're 5th in the nation, 71% with Carson Beck, 5th in completion percentage. And then, our tackles for loss allowed, which hot discussion in the chat this morning. We are 4th in tackles for loss allowed per game. So all the things that measure, like, basically not messing up.
You don't think we're goosing that set? You don't think we're goosing it?
Well, I think we're doing it for a reason. Tackles for loss kill you. You. That's why Manning was so big on getting him when he's defensive coordinator. But
we're not goosing that, though.
We're definitely not goosing it. Well, here's the problem, though. We're not goosing it, but here's the problem. Those are all great things. The ball not hitting the ground when you pass it is a good thing, right? As long as your team catches it.
Good.
Not losing yards when you run it is a good thing. Having success rate, getting for the 4 or the 6 when you need it is good. Converting. The problem is that when you get these pre-snap penalties, even if it's just 5 yards, it throws the whole calculus out of whack.
100%.
We're not an explosive team. Here's the flip side to what I just told you. 10 plus yard scrimmage plays, 112th in the nation. 20 plus yard scrimmage plays, 104th in the nation. 30 plus yard scrimmage plays, 89th. 40, 85th, 50, 84th, 60, 83rd, 70, 84th. So we're just not explosive. And ultimately, you add those two things together, we're scoring a little over 32 points a game. I believe we are 32nd in the nation in points per game. Yeah, 32nd in the nation, 32.2 points per game. So you're kind of landing somewhere in the middle, like decent. But if you want to be that top 20 offense, which I think personnel-wise, this is what it should be. Maybe not number one like it was with Cam Ward, but I think top 20 is certainly realistic goal based on what we have. You got to, number one, make more explosive plays. Number two, you got to avoid these pre-snap penalties that are screwing up your on-schedule offense.
No doubt. I generally agreed with what Shannon Dawson was trying to say, even though I'm one of these leaders, which is like, hey, diversify the portfolio a little bit. I don't want to get misconstrued, right? I just want the occasional tendency breaker, but we are who we are. But that also means that the fans know your tendencies better than anybody else. And when Samson Okunlola against Louisville has that penalty that makes a 2nd and 6, a 2nd and 11, everybody in the stands had the exact same reaction. This drive is over. Because we're not that explosive offense, like you were saying, B-Money. So it underscores what I think is the top line issue. And it's not a gap. It's not the quarterback. It's not the turnovers. It's the discipline. Like, okay, we're going to limit our offensive possessions. We're going to play complementary football. We're going to get a much better Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor because of it. That's the trade. You have a championship defense. Got it. That's the assignment. You got to be cleaner than you've been these last few weeks. That is number one with a bullet for me, D-Money.
So Bagging Up has a comment, says, good offense, aren't scared of negative plays. When you aren't explosive and lack weapons, you play conservative and use words like complementary football and execution. I mean, look, do we need to be more explosive? Obviously. You can't be ranked in the 80s in all those categories. I think personnel has a little bit to do with that. Yeah. Just some, if you look at the wide receiver class, guys that really aren't helping us at the current moment. 2023 signed Ray Joseph and Robbie Washington. Robbie's gone. Ray not really helping us right now. 2024, you signed Nye Carr and JoJo Trader, both top 100 players at that time. Neither one's helping you right now. So I think those two things, plus losing on like an Eric Singleton in the portal, of course, Jeremiah Smith, that's been well documented. Some of those things I think are hurting our explosiveness personnel wise, but the idea about like avoiding tackles for loss, not being relevant, being scared. Mike, I'm going to pull up right here. I'm going to tell you right now, the top teams, Power 4, and let's just say Power 3. Cincinnati's in here, and they're a ranked team at number 5. But if you're talking about just like Big Ten, SEC, ACC, here are the top teams. Number 1 overall, Ohio State, in tackles for loss allowed, meaning like the least amount of tackles for loss allowed. Number 2, Texas A&M. Number 3, Miami. Then Vanderbilt. Cincinnati, if you want to throw in the Big 12. And then Indiana.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, a good way to avoid a tackle for loss is to not run outside, which is what Miami's, to many people's lament, is not doing. The reason why I say, are they goosing that? We know that Alex Mirabal has a lot of influence over the team's running game. And, the run game designer is doing the offensive line coach a solid, because tackles for loss is one of those measurements that you hold against an offensive line. So the question needs to be asked, but that's just not our identity. That's not what we want to do. That's not what we built this team to do. I get all that. It should be noted that Miami has a higher average when they rush outside than they do when they rush inside the A gap at 4.5 yards per carry on the outside runs, presently sitting at 4.1 through the A gap now. And who knows what it is in a post FSU world. I don't have those numbers accessible to me, but it does feel like Miami's having a little less success to the eye anyways, running inside that A gap. Again, we are who we are. They bang that drum. I am willing to resign myself to that is a team that we built, and I've really enjoyed watching this team. And if we get a fresh defense on the other end of it, that's a fair trade. I'm a broken record, D. Just stop. You got to put your offense in the best possible position, and you can maybe survive 1 or 2 false starts. But these games where it gets compounded and you're getting 5 procedural penalties, it's hard for this team, which is a little bit more limited or just less dynamic than the greatest UM offense of all time last year, you're not doing them any favors. And you're going to have coaches that are historically conservative played to some of those tropes, unfortunately.
Sergio saying, don't praise tackles for loss is a good thing when Miami's on top because it's run for no gain. I mean, Miami's going to be on top because this is what they're built on. Last year when we were top 5 in the nation in yards per carry, we were number 4 in this stat nationally. So, I mean, this is just what we do. I think there's a reason why. And again, the teams I named, Ohio State, Texas A&M, right, Vanderbilt, Indiana, they do it for helps their offenses considerably. Now, they are more explosive than us. That's why they are better offenses than us. So there's a lot to this. I'm not that concerned with the running game. I'm concerned with the fact that teams don't respect our passing game. And then we're making unforced errors that eliminate the reason why you have this type of running game. There's no reason to have a conservative running game if you're going to lose 5 yards every drive on first, second down. It takes away, it defeats the purpose. So, Mike, we got to get to this because I know we're gone here at 4:30. Time flying by. Let's get to this here. So DJ Leak, we both independently came to this conclusion, Mike, before we shared notes, which was the game day experience. DJ Volume is out. Hope everything is all right. DJ Leak stepped in. And I don't know if I'll call it Wally Pipp. I don't know what you call it, but this guy stepped in here and electrified the building. Yeah. Timing, pace, not the most juice crowd to start for a Stanford Friday nighter or Saturday nighter. The crowd wasn't huge, but it was loud. And man, even the Sweet Caroline was well-timed and explosive. DJ Leak, I thought, had his finger on the pulse. Where were you at with DJ Leak?
I like DJ Leak, and it showed a blueprint, I think. Again, like I don't think the issues are all on DJ Volume. I believe the young man when he says, there are other factors at play. That being said, it may be circumstantial evidence and a small sample, but DJ Leak came in there, and the music selection was much better. Now, I think the music selection as a whole, from what the stadium was operating, because remember, the stadium game ops crew, they play more music than the DJ does. I think that, look, there was a job posting early last week. So like very clearly there's some kind of transition, tumult, if you will, going on over there. And look, the PA and the game ops did not help the situation against Louisville. That is well behind us. I think the game ops and the DJ certainly responded against Stanford. Not the toughest assignment in the world. Getting Miami Hurricanes hyped. We are who we are. We are very much trapped in the year 2001. Use that to your advantage. I had an enjoyable experience with the game ops and in stadium experience on Saturday, and I hope we see more of that.
Constant for whom the bell tolls on third down, I thought was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
This was a good one too. Yeah, when they played "Have You Ever Seen the Rain" by Creedence Clearwater Revival during the downpour.
That was crazy. I couldn't believe that song worked so well.
I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe it either. I mean, you never know. I mean, people think it's all just playing like Latin music or hip hop or whatever, but sometimes it's they surprise you. They surprise you with it. Sweet Caroline, I'm fully converted. I hated it with a passion, but it was so needed when they played it this last time. It hit like a bomb.
Yeah.
So who knows, man?
CCR though, that was the most pleasant surprise there. To have the call and repeat of I want to know, have you ever seen the rain? That is a game ops team that has its finger on the pulse. That's what DJing is. Reading the crowd, getting the most out of them. It's a bit of a heat check, and it paid off. So it doesn't all have to be hip hop. It doesn't all have to be Bad Bunny. Sometimes it could be CCR. Just don't hurt things. You can't afford to play like a Party in the USA that goes over like a lead balloon, because then you lose everybody and then people start noticing it, and that's not good for vibes.
Yeah, 100%. I like when they surprise you too. I think sometimes the surprise factor, right, with, Party in the USA, they play a lot too. It's just they always use it. So it's not even a surprise when it hits. So I think that's part of it as well. We got about 15 minutes left, so there's some stuff I want to
That's right, Ron the man. It's not necessarily all about the music. It's about the timing.
There it is. It's like calling plays, right? You have a script, but you got to feel it. You got to feel the way the game is going.
Mm-hmm.
Jose Lasso got to go 1-0 this week in Dallas. Yeah, shout out to Lasso. You remember last time he was there in Dallas? We were all there in the parking lot. They had like that hill. Remember that like super steep hill? Like my
Uh-huh.
kids were like rolling down, wrestling, like killing each other, like banging their heads on the ground. And I was out there chilling with you guys. I was able to kind of get away with some bad parenting there because it was a wide field, right? There's only so much bad stuff that can happen in a wide green field. So we made it through. I did lose my kid for like 10 seconds, which my son ratted on me to my wife when we got home. I don't know. The kids are very honest. You can't make mistakes in front of them. They'll call you out in a second.
D-Money, you've had memorable trips out to Dallas. Gonna miss you this week.
I know. Yeah, I got a big tournament this weekend. So I'll be probably watching the game on my phone, sadly. But yeah, brutal. At least the first half, but it's fine. I like the nooner. We've been waiting for a nooner for 11 o'clock for you.
Yeah, weird. I think a lot of Hurricanes fans have PTSD. Conference games at noon on the road. ACC gonna ACC. Ultimately, I feel pretty good about this game. It is a big line. I think Miami matches up well. I'm hopeful Miami gets a double-digit victory here, and we can start feeling the way that we did post-FSU, which is like, okay, these teams are going to load the box. Carson Beck is going to make them pay. I think he's fully capable of that. I think the lessons that you learn from Louisville are be cleaner, and if anything, look, all the pull the interception out of our ass plays happened in one game. They cannot. We can play that game 100 times, and teams aren't going to come down with those kind of interceptions. Put it behind you. Let's move on. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. You have one of the best teams in the nation. Let's just go out there and beat the crap out of SMU like we know we're capable of.
All right, let's get to your picks, Mike. Get your picks ready while I talk about my friend, the Orchid Man, ORCHID Man, Florida.com. South Florida's landscape artisans from Palm Beach all the way down to the Florida Keys. We always get comments, people, whoa, there we go. Where we go? Where's the Orchid Man? Let's find the Orchid Man here. We always get comments about people seeing the OM trucks all over South Florida. That's when you know you're in a legit neighborhood. Orchid Man, it's not just the pretty stuff, the flowers, the design, although I'll help you with that as well. It is the dirty work, the maintenance, the hurricane prep, the lighting, the trimming, you name it, they do it. Orchid Man, that is your point guard, your quarterback for the landscaping process, commercial or residential. ORCHID Florida.com. All right, let's get to your picks here. You're having a very, very good year. I haven't tabulated everything, but I know you're up pretty big. I think we both went 2-1 last week.
I locked these lines in at the start of the week. One of them I was very smart to do because I have a better price right now, and the other one went up a little bit. So if you act now, I think you can get Cal plus 4.5. But here are my picks. At the start of the week, I locked in NC State plus 6.5 against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's a good football team, but they're a good football team inside the ACC. You know who else is a good football team inside the ACC? Virginia. They lost to NC State. Wasn't a conference loss, as we've all racked our brains about looking at these tie-breaking procedures. We like Bailey. We like CJ Bailey a lot. NC State, this is usually around the time that they fight for their head coach because Doran's about to lose his job again. So I just think that they can play inside this number. I think it's too many points. I don't think there are any teams in the nation that are going to go undefeated, and certainly not in the ACC. Georgia Tech's going to slip up. Maybe they survive, maybe they don't, but this is a tough place to play at Raleigh. Sneaky kind of SEC-like atmosphere over there for the uninitiated that don't know that. I don't think Georgia Tech is that much better. That being said, they've been incredible this year. They appear to be a machine. That article that was on ESPN.com today about Haynes King was unbelievable.
Piss and blood.
Yeah. Piss and blood. And he was he's an unbelievable college football player, and one of the types of players that make you love this sport because that kind of quarterback's not really able to exist anywhere else. But I like NC State here to cover the points.
You said 6.5 you got it at?
I got it at 6.5, but it's gone down. Line movement showing that, the Sharps are on this one. I think a lot of people are aligned with me that Georgia Tech is. And if you watch these Georgia Tech games, they've been in battles. At Wake Forest, they should have lost that game. They got really lucky. Remember, a Georgia Tech D end lined up beyond the football at the line of scrimmage, and it should have been an offside. Their undefeated season is only an undefeated season because a ref missed a blatant bad call. But they've had some luck. Maybe their luck runs out. Who knows? Texas. Boy, is this one of my games of the year. Everybody is assuming, everyone's asking the question, why is Texas favored against Vanderbilt? Texas on the road has struggled against the likes of Mississippi State and Kentucky in back-to-back weeks. D-Money, we have not seen Texas's best game. We know that roster is loaded. You and I are both diamond hands on our Arch Manning stock.
Yep.
He's going to play. He suffered a concussion at the end of last week, but he appears good to go. I think Texas puts together their best game of the season. Watch out for Texas getting back into that college football playoff discussion because, number one, ESPN's not going to let them out of that discussion. And they got a lot of home games here against some opponents that'll start impressing folks. So I think this one's – I was salivating when I saw this line. I circled this game on my calendar 3 weeks ago.
Minus Texas, was 1.5 or 2?
This is at 2.5. It's vacillated. You can get it. You can get it at different places, but I think it's kind of settled at 2.5 here. If I told you at the beginning of the year that you would get Texas at minus 2.5 at home against Vanderbilt, you'd say, where do I sign? I know Vanderbilt has shown that they're a legit team, a well-coached team, a Heisman contender under quarterback, and Texas has given you all sorts of reasons for concern. Not so much at home. We haven't seen them too much at home. So I'm going to lean on that home field advantage, the fact that the SEC is not as good as everybody assumes they are. And this is, a pretty damn good line at 2.5. And in closing, I'm going to take Cal against Virginia. We know that's a difficult trip. I think this line is ballooned up to 4.5. I locked it in at 3.5. Cal, disappointing result at Virginia Tech. But again, I think Virginia Tech, that they're playing better. They really are. They're rallying around their interim head coach, and kind of concerns me a little for that trip because everybody's looking over Blacksburg and is on to Pittsburgh. Nah. And, a lot of the same players on the field for Virginia Tech that was on that field last year, that fateful Friday night in which we survived against them. But Cal's decent enough, and that is a tough enough trip for what I believe to be a good Virginia team. But I'll take the points here. I do actually think Virginia wins this game. I don't think that we get the help that we're hoping for here, but I think this is a field goal at the end type of game. Give me that hook. Give me Cal.
Josh asking where he gets that CanesInSight hoodie. There should be links under the YouTube video. You can get CanesInSight at my Shopify. So just go CanesInSight Shopify. That will pop up there. We got some links also on the website. I wish I had a over under on how many times you use the word vacillate in a given week. I feel it's one of your go-tos.
It is.
Once a week we'll get that vacillate.
I don't want to say a flip-flop.
No, vacillate is smooth. I'm with it. I'm not criticizing.
Its very definition is to be smooth.
There it is, right there. So I have no arguments on these. The Texas one's going to be interesting just because I wasn't sure where Arch was, and he's been heating up a little. I'm a fan. I think that makes a lot of sense. We'll see how real Vanderbilt is. I think they are real, but there's a difference between being real and being 10 wins, 11 wins in the SEC type real. So I think they'll be probably more like 9-win type team when it's all said and done, maybe 10. But
yeah, which 9-3 SEC team will they have leapfrog Miami when it comes to CFP time after Miami goes?
It might be Texas. We got to be careful. We got to be careful here, but we'll see how that goes. Going back to the SEC, I got Tennessee -3 over Oklahoma. Both of these teams are pretty similar. They can't really pass protect very well. They have very good defenses. Quarterbacks are up and down, big play guys. I just think Tennessee's more explosive at receiver. They're at home. So I see two very similar teams. There's going to be a lot of sacks in this game, a lot of pressure, but I like Tennessee. Got Baylor, who was with a coach on the hot seat in Aranda, -3.5 over UCF. Same thing. They're at home. UCF just had a big win over West Virginia, kind of get back on track after losing a bunch of games in a row. But I just trust Baylor on offense more. Neither team's going to play a lot of defense, but Baylor's offense just has a little more NFL talent at receiver, at running back, and then, of course, tight end with Michael Trigg and quarterback with Sawyer Robertson. I just think I like their firepower. I think there's a shootout. They win by like around 10 and cover. And then USC -6 over Nebraska. I've never been a Nebraska believer. I picked them once thinking they were going to get, it was their time to get over the hump against Michigan, and they got dominated by a freshman quarterback. So I'm out of the Nebraska business. I know Rule is the belle of the ball. You're a big fan of his agent. I still don't know what he does around here. He hasn't beaten a ranked team in a decade. But hey, all the power to him. I just don't think he gets this one done. USC with their offense. It's not a crazy trip going from California to Nebraska. It's not a great trip, but whatever. It should be fine. And Mayav playing at such a high level. Makai Lemon, they just have a really, really good offense. I think they get that one done.
I don't know what he does around here. Well, I know one thing that he doesn't, and that's beat ranked teams. And I checked the standings. USC, ranked team. So you know what to do.
Shout out to Jordan right there. Yeah, I know we're not doing the wrestler of the week. We'll wait till P. I'm sure is working on. P's probably in Japan right now studying for his wrestler of the week. But I wanted to shout out Jeff Hardy right here, because Jeff Hardy. First of all, you see Jahmyr Gibbs, running back for the Detroit Lions, dressing up like Jeff Hardy, doing the dance. Very well done. I mean, that's a great execution on the costume, great execution on the dance. And then the girl's Lita. Yeah, I don't know how studied she is for that role, but looks the part. We had an interview with Amon Richards when we did our weekly spot on Tuesday, and wrestling came up, and I asked him, I go, who was your favorite wrestler? He goes, oh, the Hardy Boys. Me and my brother were the Hardy Boys all the time, jumping off things. He could, we could have had a career never start jumping on some of these tables and all these things. I wonder how many injuries you could directly attribute to Jeff Hardy, but awesome wrestler, and still over with that generation. Like, we're a little older, right, than these guys that are the huge Jeff Hardy fans. But I feel like people that are like late 20s.
He's like
Sting. Mid to late.
He's like their Sting. So the way that Sting was for both Surfer Sting and Crow Sting had that cool appeal. Jeff Hardy just was cool to a certain generation.
Gabe's vacillating like right now.
He was doing it so well that I was upset that he had such a huge phone in his hand. You got to see the hands going.
It's true. All right. So song of the week, I don't know if you got one, but you're going to Texas. So I had to go with my man, George Strait, Amarillo by Morning. One of the great songs ever to come out of this country, really. 1982, I believe. This was really his first breakout hit. Now a legend, selling out stadiums in Dallas, Texas. He sells out Cowboy Stadium, no problem. But he's an actual cowboy. He was a rodeo cowboy. So I think that's why the song works, because he's singing about being a cowboy, and he actually was a cowboy. Brought back the classic country sound. It was starting to get a little more modern. George Strait brought it back with the neoclassical country style right there. Again, this is still, to me, his best song. Some bars in that song that I put on in the pantheon. Everything that I've got is just what I've got on. I ain't got a dime, but what I got is mine. I ain't rich, but Lord, I'm free. Pretty good right there.
That's a bar.
Man, George Strait, the king of country music, who spends a lot of time in Miami. Actually wrote a song about Miami pretty recently. So shout out to the king of country music, George Strait. And man, I mean, you got a Texas playlist you're playing out there. Your business trip.
Yeah, this is business and some golf. I'm taking clubs, even though it's a little ridiculous to insist on taking your own clubs when you haven't swung one of them in 2 years. But we're gonna go ahead and do that. Shout out to the Golden Canes. Miami's athletic department does a really good job making this weekend feel special. Go out there, like I said, play clean, and let's beat the crap out of SMU like we know we're capable of.
Mike, you're the man. Enjoy your trip. We'll talk later. Go Canes.
Yes, sir. Go Canes.
All right, real quick. It's Wednesday. So, I was texting somebody I was walking through Times Square, and I texted the group chat. I said, this is great. This is cool. Times Square, walking around Midtown Manhattan. But in terms of really feeling that vibrant energy, nothing beats the Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion at East Las Canarias Cuban Express. 7 different types of croquetas, all kinds of Cuban sandwiches, cubaritos, loaded fries, bowls, you name it, shakes, coffees, desserts, natilla, my favorite, but you got tres leches, you got all this kind of flan. Everything you need, they got at East Las Canarias Cuban Express in the Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion. They got every kind of cuisine out here in the world in New York City, but they don't have East Las Canarias, which means Cuban-wise, they're always going to go short. This is the real deal. Islas Canarias Cuban Express right there in the Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion. Sports, having some flan for breakfast. Yeah, man. So real quick, just before we get out of here, I should probably actually talk about recruiting a little bit, because some interesting news with Keyshawn Stansel, 4-star defensive tackle out of the Raleigh area, I believe, in North Carolina. Interviewed him when he came on his visit. He seemed like he was all Cane. Certainly seemed like a guy that loved his visit. Then started trending to Clemson, which they do work out there. It's not their first recruiting battle they've won in that state of North Carolina. So you said, okay, well, Clemson's going to win some of those. At that time, they were preseason top 5 and all that stuff. But Clemson's season's since gone south, and we're starting to see predictions from Steve Wilfong and some others for 4-star defensive tackle Keyshawn Stansel to flip to the University of Miami. And I will say that I have no reason to doubt those predictions. We'll see how it plays out. But man, this is an extremely talented player. Like I said, I interviewed him. He had good size, definitely was not undersized, but what jumps out is the speed and athleticism, and also the senior film. Mitchell Milan Paris, who committed yesterday, Miami loved. He was a highly rated player already, 4-star player, so it's not like a sleeper, but Miami loved the jump he made as a senior. Kind of went from a good 4-star player to like a real big time priority type of guy. Stansel, you're seeing some of the same things where he was already a 4-star player. We tried to get him in the summer before he played any senior year. But now, man, his senior film, I've told, is absolutely out of this world. There's some game clips I'll pull up here in a second, but he brings that penetrating ability that in Heatherman's defense, he wants guys that can get upfield and cause problems. Look at the pursuit speed. Guy was also a very accomplished high school thrower, shot put, discus, does that very well. His shot put in particular is pretty strong for a guy that's, his size. He has verified testing, again, like Milan Paris, when it comes to the movement stuff. So still committed to Clemson, I believe, technically, but I do think Miami has a great shot to get this one done. Put this guy with Tyson Bacon, Frederick Saintius, the very, very talented, hardworking, emerging defensive tackle from Haiti, now living in the southwest part of Florida. So get some athletes in that room if you can land a Keyshawn Stansel. I'm very, very excited to see how this one lands. Josh Gross asking what his wingspan is. I'm not sure, but just shaking his hand, I was pretty far away. He had long arms in that setting. But yeah, this would be a huge pickup. And defensive lineman, everybody knows you can't have enough of these guys. This is what separates the haves from the have-nots in college football, is getting guys like a Keyshawn Stansel. It's what Clemson had for many years. Think about Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, guys like that. Now Peter Woods, but it's only Peter Woods. They don't have the depth of defensive linemen where they used to, whereas Miami's trying to stack some of those guys. Got a good defensive line this year, obviously, for the Canes, one of the best in the country. They'll have to keep that going, and an athletic prospect like Keyshawn Stansel would fit in like a glove, man. So really hope that one gets done. And listen, if we get a commitment from Stansel anytime soon, I'll say the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my fridge, I'm going to open the door, I'm going to pop open fresh BUZZN, BUZZN, drinkbuzzn.com, drink, BUZZN.com. Use code FIRST50 for 50% off. 7.5 milligrams of real THC infused seltzer. All hang, no hangover. I was drinking a couple of these watching that World Series game that went 18 innings. I was definitely tired the next morning, but I'll tell you what, no hangover, which was nice. All bubbles, no troubles. All hang, no hangover. Lab tested. Bubbles with benefits. Pick your slogan, whichever one's your favorite. Drink BUZZN, BUZZN.com. You can also get them in person in South Florida at Big Daddy's Liquors. That's Liquors. That's BUZZN.com for BUZZN. Drink, BUZZN.com to be precise. All right, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. Don't forget to go to the Miami Hurricane team store to get your gear. It is still pretty nice out here in the Northeast, but it's getting colder. So I definitely recommend getting your CanesInSight hoodie, but you can also get all kinds of team hoodies at Miami Hurricane team store, MiamiHGS.com. And that's the team store located right across the street from University of Miami. Promo code INSIGHT20. Like these shirts right here. Pretty cool new shirts here. Gear for game day. All kinds of stuff. Promo code INSIGHT20 will get you 20% off your first item. So grab hat, polo, long sleeve, jacket, whatever you want. There's the camo. I know a lot of people like those camo jerseys right there. Get the camo jerseys from Adidas, the camo hoodie right there, hooded sweatshirt, I should say, and the polo, all kinds of stuff at MiamiHTS.com, promo code INSIGHT20. All right, everybody, appreciate you guys joining us. Go Canes.